The events that have transpired since the middle of March because of COVID-19 have disrupted literally every single industry on the planet. The pandemic has changed how we work, how we play, even how we relate to each other. The world of post-secondary education is undergoing a tremendous metamorphosis. At Sheridan, the wheels of change are in full motion thanks to the pandemic, as the school recaptures how it delivers the college post-secondary experience. There are over 120 programs you can study at Sheridan, 26 of them at the degree level. It has a successful track record as a research institute and is internationally recognized for its programs in animation, film, and theater. Its 185,000 alumni have benefited from an intensely creative blend of theoretical and practical hands-on training and a very rich on-campus student experience and environment. But what does this mean during a time of physical distancing measures? How does a college like Sheridan adapt to ensure students still receive the ultimate academic experience? Maria Lucido-Besley is Sheridan's Dean of Students. That's how much the college is committed to the student experience, devoting an entire department and dean to represent them. She talked to us about the events of the past few months and how the college is looking for her guidance during this pandemic.
The in-person experience, the campus experience, student life, life in the classroom, life outside the classroom, it's all critically important. It's part of the experience, it's part of learning and developing, right? So, getting to know your professors and making friends and the spontaneous fun, or, being able to get some help or guidance when you need it. It's all critical, right? And so, in March, when the pandemic hit us all, it was like, being hit by a tidal wave, and we were reacting. So quickly, as quickly as we all could. All supports were designed to go virtual. So everything went virtual, whether it was counseling or advising or, tutoring, just about everything. And so we were able to get that going. And then, life settles just a bit and you think, okay, where's life on campus? Where's that sense of belonging, that sense of community, that sense of engagement that will eliminate that sense of isolation?
This isn't really an easy situation for any of us, for any industry. How did Sheridan come to the realization what needed to shift in order to be prepared for what lies ahead?
We sort of went from, okay, we got hit with a tidal wave, and now it's like, okay, so now how are we going to get the best that is shared and that we love in a virtual environment? And so I'd say that we went from that to, okay, we're all in 100%. And that's, I guess, one of the things I really love about our community at Sheridan is that we're resilient, we're energetic, we're creative, and I guess, and above all, I do think there's something really special about our place. We really are committed to the students. We kept, in these weeks and months, very close contact with our students, close contact with everybody who has been connecting with the students, including faculty and all the staff and student leaders. What are they experiencing? What are they asking for? What do they miss? What are they struggling with?
But what about student to student? A lot of the on-campus experience has to do with students deciding on their own what they want to do, want to experience. How are you facilitating that?
Yes, and appreciate you asking me that. Yes, indeed. And so, for example, we have a clubs platform where students can, sign up for clubs, create their own, a platform where students can connect with other students. Part of what we're doing in the early stages with our new students is these welcome webinars. And so, for example, we had one just a little while ago, and our students from local, but also from across Canada and some international, where it was, how do you even get yourself started? But they were making friends while they were there. They were making contact and making plans to connect with each other again. And so those sorts of things are exciting. So what we're trying to create is peer-to-peer connections in those platforms so that they can create their own connection and their own social engagement.
One of the questions you may be asking yourself is, what about the quality of an online education? If you are entering or considering a program that is moving to distance learning, you may have some questions about the effectiveness of learning that way. We asked Sheridan President Dr. Janet Morrison about that.
So I'm very conscious of the value proposition of post-secondary education, right? It costs a lot of money for families. And so I understand the weighing and balancing of whether now is the right time. What I'd say is, let me offer a couple of thoughts after 30 years in this space. This draws on my own personal experience coaching and mentoring students, and in my very recent conversations with both learners and parents about the decisions that they're contemplating. So the first is that the key to learning, like to deep learning, right? The learning that you do that sticks is actually engagement. The medium is irrelevant. So in those spaces with educators who can facilitate, foster, engaging experiences, the medium is actually immaterial. So I think sometimes we get stuck on this notion of online, but I would really encourage folks to have a look at some of our social media posting, at our faculty days, to really see what alternate delivery will look like with an eye to engagement, as opposed to the means by which material is being delivered. So that's the first piece of it. I think the second conversation that has to happen, has been happening, is about what's happening in the world and how going forward, people are best prepared to navigate that complexity. And I think particularly at Sheridan, our mission and mandate, our focus has really been on preparing learners, galvanizing their educational experiences to be ready for a complex world. And on some level, our most recent strategic plan was prescient, right? It was like having a crystal ball. We know that the world is volatile, that it's uncertain, that it's complex, that it's ambiguous. In that space, an educational learning experience that certainly will lead you to a credential, but an experience that teaches you or cultivates the capacity to navigate that space is really invaluable, particularly now. So if you're in an environment, for example, that cultivates, encourages, develops your ability to be resilient or to pivot, to navigate change, these are the types of skills that we hear all the time are going to increasingly be in demand. And I think this pandemic has reinforced how important those things are. Sometimes those things are called soft skills. I really object to that language. These are actually some of the most important skills, I think, for professionals to not just understand and embrace, but to really reflect on. Because certainly it's a pandemic now, but we've been experiencing technological disruption for years. And so regardless of what the disruption or the change agent is, we at Sheridan very much see the value of cultivating those competencies or capacities to navigate them with confidence.
Students in the spring session in the Mechanical Engineering Diploma program at Sheridan are just one of the many groups who are learning a different way. When the pandemic hit, professors in that program quickly shifted how they teach by creating a virtual replication of their own on-campus lab where students learn. Dr. Andy Elabady built this virtual lab using gaming technology, an idea he says he got while watching his 18-year-old nephew play video games from the popular Resident Evil and Grand Theft Auto franchises. He says during the isolation of COVID-19, young people's social lives are very limited, and many have turned to gaming to pass the time. So why not use that approach in education?
We're trying to provide our students with the best learning experience possible. And in order to do that, we need them to have as close as possible to the learning or the experiential learning that we used to have before the pandemic. So I developed this lab in order to complement what we have in the hardware that we have at Sheridan College. Students can go and walk inside the lab, the virtual lab, just like they do in their actual lab. They can go and walk to the trainer that is assigned to them by the instructor. They can push a button. They can visualize what happened if they push the start button. It works exactly the same as the actual trainer that we have inside the lab.
So looking to the fall, what are you focusing on now?
I am planning actually to work on adding the robotic to the virtual labs. So we at Sheridan have a very good lab in terms of robotics, partnered with ABB and FANUC. And I'm planning to add this component because we have a course, we have two courses actually, that include robotics. And my plan is to include or build a robotics station for students to go and work on, kind of like working on the actual robot, but it's going to be virtual. So that is my next, my plan for the spring, summer, maybe towards the fall. And by the way, you can actually connect a real PLC controller or even a robot actually to the virtual lab. So let's say you are building an application that include a robot or a PLC in your project, and you did the programming, you testing it, and everything was fine. You can actually transfer that program to the actual PLC and the actual robot, and that way you don't you will see the advantages of what we call virtual commissioning.
We talk about disruptors in the academic world all the time. Technology's fast evolution has been the major disruptor in academia for the past 20 years. What you're likely hearing regularly now is that this pandemic is the new disruptor we are being forced to pay attention to. Lucido Besley has another view.
Yes, it's been a pandemic, but in a disruptor, but maybe it's an accelerator, really. And a faculty member colleague of ours said that just last week in a conversation, and it's so true. And I think for our students, we talk about innovation, we talk about the need to be flexible and to be open, and it's all we can really expect in our future is change. And so I think that this virtual learning environment, virtual classroom, and the virtual experience is actually going to be extremely valuable from a development perspective for our students. And while it may feel uncomfortable and it may have started in a rocky way, no matter where they were in their learning in the past, I actually think this is going to be really good for them because pandemic or huge changes in our global world, we're going to see more of it, right? So we might as well gear up and develop those extra skills of grit.
Extra skills of grit. There's no question this is a time for grit and adaptability. That wraps up this edition of Sheridan Tomorrow. Join us next time as we track down some of the first Sheridan students experiencing rapid change and find out how they're making out. I'm Shireen Mansour. Bye for now.